Good morning and welcome to the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. We are a philosophically based spiritual community founded on existential philosophy and guided by feminist principles and dedicated to human liberation and the protection of the natural world. My name is Patton White and I will be facilitating this morning's celebration of life. We make our spiritual home in the Old Stone Church, which was hand-built 100 years ago by the African-American Antioch East Baptist Church. We honor their labors of love and the powerful history of this special place. We acknowledge that our spiritual home stands on land forcibly taken from the Muskogee Creek people. We support justice and equality for all Indigenous people. Our opening words are by quotes by Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King and Jr. And since tomorrow we will be honoring his life through the ML King holiday, I wanted to share a couple of quotes and then just a couple of thoughts. So the first one is, "He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it." And the second quote, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." So between both of those quotes, I encourage every one of us to speak truth to power, and where we see those who are passively accepting evil, call that out, because that is part of the light that will be driving out the darkness, not sinking to the level of those who simply sit and passively observe. All right, moving on to our only congregational song today, and that is our familiar tune, "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" And this will be led by Mick Kinney on the piano, Robert Stewart singing, and Gene Heinrich on the melodica and providing also some vocals. Please rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able, and join in singing "Will the Circle Be Unbroken."
Good morning, this is Robert Stewart. I am really excited to be joined by wonderful musicians today, Mick Kinney, Andy Weisskopf, and Gene Heinrich. And for some reason they tapped me to be the song leader today, and this is a new experience. So here we are in the middle of the pandemic, all learning something new. Today, we're going to begin with number 89, "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" I hope that you'll be able to sing along.
Yes, we'll carry
so much, Mick, Robert, and Jean, for that lovely familiar tune. Today's speaker, the Reverend Angela Denise Davis, is an ordained minister, arranger, composer, and a music educator. She is the founder of Uke Griot, a program that offers ukulele instruction focusing on awakening musical skills, increasing social engagement, and fostering joy in making music. Her musical arrangements are largely focused within the domain of Negro spirituals and blues. In addition, she has a broad interest in using the ukulele as a conduit for spiritual practice, meditation, and healing. She joined forces with ZAMI NOBLA, the National Organization of Black Lesbians on Aging, in May 2019 to create and direct a community music program, Uke-In, that welcomes all persons with targeted outreach to the LGBTQ community. She is a James Hill Ukulele Initiative certified teacher. Please join me in welcoming the Reverend Angela Denise Davis.
When life itself offers no order and meaning, the musician creates an order and meaning from the sounds of the earth which flow through the musician's instrument. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. printed in the program of the 1964 Berlin Jazz Festival. First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. I am so glad to be with you again today. It's been such a long time, and so much has happened since the last time we had been together. So I am glad on the other side, but in the midst still of what has happened in my life and what has happened in your lives, that we are able to be here to share this virtual space today. My talk is entitled, Little David, Play on Your Harp, the Transformative Power of Music. Little David, play on your harp, the transformative power of music. If you are familiar with Negro spirituals, then you will recognize that half of my title is from the spiritual Little David, play on your harp. Little David, play on your harp. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play on your harp. Hallelujah. A very familiar tune to many folks. And when I think of this particular spiritual, I think about how as a child I learned the story of David and Saul, and how when Saul had a very disruptive spirit, David was called for to play his harp. And that harp was a transformative vehicle for Saul to ease out of his spirit of discontent, so to speak. That, to me, was the first time within the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, that I heard about the power of music to transform the energy of one's person, one's space, into something positive from something negative, to shift the air, so to speak. It's certainly not the first time I experienced it, though, as a child growing up in a very musical family, in a community where music was a part of worship, a part of entertainment, a part of celebration. All of these times in our lives, we celebrated music and we sang, so I could see how music shifted, transformed, so to speak, the air. I recall listening to recordings of Bernice Johnson Reagan, and she was part of the Freedom Singers during the Civil Rights Movement, and also the founder of Sweet Honey in the Rock, an a cappella group who celebrated African American music. And she talked about how during the Civil Rights Movement, a song would be lifted up. A song would be lifted up in a very tense time, in a time when the people needed to come together, and in a time when there was some fear, some trepidation about going out to protest, to march, and that song would be lifted up, and it would change the energy in the room, transform it, so to speak. Within the lifespan of African American music, from the spirituals to the blues to contemporary music, we see this thread, this potential for transformation. And it's not only found in the music of my people, but it's also found in the music of so many other people all across the globe, because music has a transformative element. If you listen and if you find yourself within the story of the song, you too can be transformed. I had a wonderful way of exploring that last year with a group of 8 musicians, the Remember and Reimagine Ukulele Ensemble. This group of fierce sister musicians from all across the country came together, and they participated in a beginner ukulele ensemble course that I taught. And at the end of that course, we went into a time of ensemble development. And from our 10-month experience together, we created a world premiere of their performing Negro spirituals that I had arranged for ukulele. And within the context of that experience, I believe we all were transformed by the power of this music, these incredible songs. "My Can Row the Boat Ashore," "Every Time I Feel the Spirit," "Wade in the Water," and my favorite song, "If You Know Me, This Little Light of Mine." How this music was remembered by us as we talked about the transformative nature of Negro spirituals, and how they provided for enslaved people an opportunity to find themselves in a place where they could secure their own human dignity in a world that robbed them of that at every turn. We celebrated that because that idea of finding one's somebodyness, as a theologian, James Cone, would say, the somebodyness that these enslaved people were able to conjure up in their music and their art made it possible for them in a time of oppression, utter dehumanization, of chattel slavery in America. Their somebodyness was conjured up in their music and the way in which they reinterpreted the religion that was given to them. Of course, we know that Christianity wasn't new to Africa before the arrival of enslaved Africans on this continent. What was new in this sense was how this form of white American Christianity was complicit with a system of dehumanization that said these human beings were 3/5 of a person. And within the reality of that world, those enslaved people were able to say, "I am somebody," and to claim their somebodyness, which was lived out in their music and their art and their daily thriving, to say, "I am human, I am a child of God," regardless of the legal status of being chattel property, of being a slave. I know I am enslaved, and I'm somebody. That's where this hinge of transformation happens with Negro spirituals. Understanding the reality of the world in which they lived, but the interior space of their somebodyness, which you hear all in these songs. And you may mistake it to think it's about heaven and an otherworldly place, as opposed to a way of really communicating how to experience the world, what to look out for, how to navigate one's journey to freedom. All of these things are found within these songs, which transformed the way in which these enslaved people reached for their lives and conjured up their somebodyness in the midst of a horrific experience and the legacy of a perverted Christianity, which we still are dealing with the legacy of that even to this day. That somebodyness. Ain't I a child of God? That somebodyness in the music was transformed, so much so that when we look at how these slave songs, these sorrow songs, these Negro spirituals carried themselves throughout the years, they were carried into the civil rights movement. And the lyrics were transformed to meet the place, the location of where people striving for freedom needed those songs to be. And so with this Remember and Reimagine Ukulele Ensemble, I encouraged my students, even in this time, in this place, to reimagine what those songs can mean for us today, especially as we are dealing with a global pandemic, that it sometimes seems like we are little David in the midst of a Goliath, that we are challenged on every turn, trying to find a way of transforming the world in which we live. And we're called to find new ways of living in this space of these uncertain times. So I walk into the space today understanding that there is a rich history within the music I love to arrange and to play and to teach, these Negro spirituals, for us to find how this music has been a tool of transformation. But I step back now and I also say that there is something about the act of making music itself, which is transformative, which in our day and age, we need to sit and linger with. This idea of no longer consuming music, but creating it. Of coming to a place where we can pick up an instrument, where we can sing in the shower, where we can sit around the table at dinner with our families and sing. And find within the harmony of those notes something that reaches to the core of our bodies and transforms the space around us when we are so needed in this day and age to find tools for transformation. The thing that I learned most from my time with my ensemble last year is that if you show up and you are present to celebrate the moment, transformation happens, even if you're not looking. If you are present every day and you show up in your practice of an instrument, of singing, of whatever it is that you are doing musically, it shifts a gear and you find yourself building upon what you've learned the previous day. And you realize that there's no magic in music. There is a method. There is a practice. There are skills we learn. But you don't just wake up one day with a gift and you're this incredible singer, this incredible ukulele player. It is a practice that makes it possible for this transformation of sound to happen, this transformation of strings and a sound box to present into the world a vibration that shifts the air around you. I used to take it for granted that people enjoy singing or being sung to until I would play a song for someone over the phone. And they would tell me how much they enjoyed it, genuinely, authentically enjoyed that song. And I took for granted this gift of music. But during COVID, Marianne and I would often call people and do just that, sing a song. Because we wanted to share the gift of music. We wanted to be in community in one way over those fiber optic lines of being able to communicate with each other and transform our space was to share music with people we love. When we give ourselves over to the practice of music, it is transformative, not just for ourselves, but for those with whom we share this music. I also remember and celebrate the fact that music also does something to our mind, our brains, when we play it. It has a capacity to work with our neuroplasticity that the nerves, the fibers, the movement in our brain sparks in new ways when we engage things like music or picking up a new skill, especially as we grow older. That music is good for the brain. It's good for the body. In addition to that neuroplasticity, it also brings us into community with people, which is why I love the ukulele. It's a community instrument. It's one that you can pick up and you can join an ukulele jam, now virtually, soon hopefully in person. And you can be in community with people. And there's nothing like 20 or 30 ukuleles in one room strumming. I mean, you're just happy. You're happy. There's a joy. There's a sense of energy in that room, in that space where we transform these pieces of wood and string into musical vibrations. I want to encourage you in this time as we are trying to navigate space and needing a lot of transformation on so many levels, not just with the global pandemic of COVID-19, but in so many social justice places where we are fighting and continuing to push for freedom and liberation. That you find a way of transforming your space, transforming your mind, transforming your being. And it may be through getting up in the morning and picking up an instrument like the ukulele and learning to play. It's a very accessible and affordable instrument. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an ukulele teacher. I'm saying that because I play, and I know that from a wide variety of instruments that I have gathered over the years, it really doesn't take a lot of dollars to get an instrument where you can play and learn how to be musical again if you've fallen out of fashion with that. It may be getting up in the morning and starting a routine where you sing in the shower, where you appreciate just hearing yourself in that room, making a joyful noise and letting the heartbeat of the music reach the heartbeat of your body and feeling the sound. It may be finding some time in the afternoon of sitting with one of your favorite songs or listening to a new song from a different part of the world, from a different group of people, and learning how to appreciate the difference that you hear and be transformed by the diversity of sounds and rhythms. Maybe it's at night, putting on some music to fall asleep to in your bedroom. Some calming music, an evening vesper, or creating a ritual of singing a song yourself before you sleep. Letting the vibration of that music come into the core of your being. Music is transformative. It shapes us. It locates us. It is embodied within us. On this day, when we are reaching for so many new spaces in which to live our lives, in these new days, may you find the melody and the harmony of life that makes it possible for you to be transformed every day in grace and mercy as you live your life on this planet. And so it is.
Thank you again so much, Angela. I always love hearing what you have to say and how you say it. Please join us on Zoom immediately following today's broadcast, where we will engage in a meet and greet and share thoughts and reflections on the topics and themes that Angela has presented today, as well as sharing personal joys, sorrows, and concerns, and community announcements. You can find the link to the Zoom meeting in the chat section of today's broadcast. Next week, we will be welcoming Michelle Wilson, the COO of Women Engaged. I hope that you are able to join us either on Zoom or next week at 11 a.m. Until then, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.